College of Education in the counseling department. And we had 3 people that we were going to bring on campus for an interview. And one of my colleagues decided to go on Facebook and check out these candidates. One of the candidates was a female who was one of our top prospects. And on her Facebook, she had this picture that said, "I'm the PhD diva." And the way she was dressed, very short skirt and very outrageous. I mean, frankly, I found nothing wrong with it. But my female colleagues obviously were very upset and said, in the first place, if you come here, you are not a diva. You come as, as an assistant professor. We're professors and associates. We're the divas. So I think part of it is that she was already ostracized and excluded because she created some animosity within the faculty, and eventually there were a lot of negative things said. Although she was the best candidate, she wasn't given the opportunity because we had a meeting following that, and they said based on her Facebook and what was in her Facebook, they actually didn't call her in for, on a campus interview. So I think that was unfortunate. And I think part of the problem is that a lot of these young people that I talk to, I mean, especially if they're from certain communities, don't understand the repercussion of Facebook. They see it, as you said, on social media as a way for them to express themselves. And I think part of what young people are doing today is that they're expressing themselves not knowing that later on there could be consequences from those expressions. So I think part of it is that even within the high school arena, we have to start educating students about the necessity, and the risk, and the appropriateness of Facebook. And I think we're not doing that enough at the high school level. In British Columbia, for example, there was just last week, a young girl, 16-year-old, she attended a rape party, and she was drugged, and she was raped by 6 young men between the ages of 16 and 18. And it was posted on Facebook, and it went from student to student all over the web. And obviously the police are very concerned about that. And they were interviewing young people who got these pictures, and they were saying, well, she looked like she wanted it. She looked like she was asking for it. And so part of it, I think, again, when you look at the repercussion of Facebook, is a lot of young people aren't educated about Facebook. And I think part of it, again, as parents, as teachers, what do we tell our kids about Facebook, and do they actually understand the impact of Facebook? I think that's something we have to look at.
I would have to agree. And when you made the comment about the professor not dressing appropriately, I'm not even talking about Facebook, I'm talking about Blackboard. I have a class where one student is supposed to picture themselves in a brief introduction so we all get to know each other by name and face. And I specifically said an appropriate picture of yourself in red, bold print. But now I realize I have to explain what appropriate means, because the first comments that came in had these young ladies dressed in outfits that were deep cut. And I thought, wow, enough of them have done it that they don't understand what appropriate means.
Exactly. And to them that's appropriate. But I think that's part of the problem, is that the lack of education of young kids really understanding what's appropriate, and especially coming from some of these cultural groups, in some of these areas. I see a lot of things on Facebook where when you talk to them is that they thought it was normal, that's okay. It's okay in my community, it's okay with my friends, it's okay with my family, but no, it's not okay within the larger context of society, and I think that's where the breakdown starts.
Do we have any training at orientation for students about social media? I know the med school does a great job with residents in training them about the use of social media, but do we have anything for incoming students? For that matter, do we have anything for faculty?
We're starting to introduce so happy to see your presentation. I want to make it today. Really appreciate you bringing this issue to the board. We're starting to incorporate it in our freshman orientation course because of the kinds of things. We had an event this summer that was entirely inappropriate, and again, the students don't recognize the inappropriateness of what they're saying or how they're representing themselves to a global community. And so we're beginning to, but it's very much a work in progress.
You should check with them.
Do you have a contact person over there for that school?
Yeah. And I can email it too. I'm teaching a class now in new media, and I have a student who's working at the men's school, so he shared with us their training for it.
But I do orientation at the school approach there, so
Yeah.
I'm really interested.
Yeah, he did a really nice job.
You know, this is one of the, I guess, fallout. If the college students come to us having primarily had interaction socially through internet, then, you know, it does say something about, you know, what does that say about their ability to interact or to develop relationships and to understand appropriate and inappropriate behavior? Because primarily they've gotten that information through Facebook and other venues that aren't face-to-face. And I think, you know, there's a lot to be said about kids learning by observing as opposed to just being online. And I think they lose that if they haven't gotten it. My 12-year-old daughter is mad at me because I won't let her have a Facebook page. And I worry that if I let her, you know, what does that say? But as we're talking, I'm just thinking that a lot of kids come to college and haven't had that benefit. And so what does that mean for us as educators? Can we do anything? In many cases, we can't, and you're really dealing with the fallout of that when these situations can come up. And it's a little disconcerting. I don't know what we can do.
I think and that you're right. I mean, in a way, sometimes we can think that when they get to us, it's too late. But I look at it to say, well, if this is how they come, and this is what we know of how they develop, then our job is to do what we can to help develop them in that direction, because none of us around the table would ever put anything on there like what we saw on College ACB or even things we see on Facebook. But would we have 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years ago if it existed? I don't know. I mean, I certainly do share stories with students about what it was like when I was in college, but the stuff we got away with, professors coming down to the basement of our fraternity house, pulling up a stool at our bar and having a beer with us. It was common. It's not. You don't do it anymore. So we learn, we grow, we learn. So if we can take where they're at, understand where we want to get them to be, and do our part to get them there. If we have to be the change agent.
Yeah, we're certainly not giving up. And one of the things we can advocate for is perhaps the K-12 education doing more. I just worry about what they, I think you're right. Social media is there, we can't get rid of it. But I guess I would want students to recognize the worth of other interactions. And there are some students, because it's easier for them to be online, whether it's shyness or some other reasons. So hopefully this can be a vehicle for them to move towards other interactions and not just encourage more of just that or primarily that.
There's also, part of how we help, I think, is to go back to what you were saying. I do insist that my students use Blackboard. I have it on my syllabus. What I say is I'm a Blackboard freak, and I'm going to use it many times a week. Check your mail every day. So what you're doing is giving them, all right, I'm old, and they know it, and Blackboard is vastly old-fashioned, and it still seems weird to say that. But what it does is say to them, there is the professional piece, and then there's your escape back to Facebook or Twitter or whatever it'll be in another 5 years. So in a way, part of what we can do, it seems to me, is teach them that there are registers, to use a linguistics term. There's the formality of Blackboard and other interactions when you're interacting with your professor and with your classmates on a professional level. And then there's what you do in the other part of it. And maybe that's part of what we can do, maybe even making it even overt. I mean, I tell them to check their mail every day, but maybe it would be worth saying to them, that's a professional